Well, the sister of a man shot dead by Gardaí in the front garden of his family's home has said somebody needs to answer for her brother's death. Gloria Nkencho was shot in Clonee in Dublin in December 2020 by Gardaí responding to reports of a man in the area armed with a knife. The Garda watchdog, GSOC, has sent a file on his killing to the Director of Public Prosecutions. Gloria Nkencho spoke to me earlier and began by telling me how she felt when that decision was made.
Relief that we weren't all crazy and that somebody else sees that maybe something did go wrong on that day and that maybe there are questions that need to be asked and somebody needs to answer these questions. So it was just relief that we felt that it was moving and progressing in the right direction.
What are the questions and the concerns that you and the family have at this point, Gloria?
Why did it happen? Why did it happen, and why did it happen that way? That would be most of our concerns right now.
Can you elaborate on that?
Why was he killed? Why was he killed in the manner that he was killed, in front of his house, in front of his siblings, while they were aware that people were in the house? Those are the concerns that we have right now.
I know you have been told not to speak about the events of December 30th, but they're probably still very fresh in your mind?
Yeah, they are fresh in my mind, but I try and not think about it or dwell on it too much right now.
Do you replay them?
Of course, we do. I still live in the Blanchetown area. I still replay them if I ever drive past the house or my old house or even the route. I replayed it all the time.
You say that there has been an injustice here. What is the injustice and how would you see that being rectified?
Injustice in terms of how we've probably been treated, especially even like on social media, and like being questioned as well as to why we feel the way we feel, as if it's something new to feel sad or to feel hurt by the taking away of your loved one. That would be sort of an injustice to us. How it can be rectified is by getting justice and getting an acknowledgement that something went wrong and this shouldn't have happened.
So what does justice look like for you and your family?
Well, for me, justice would look like accountability and an acknowledgement to say this was wrong and to admit that this was wrong. That would be just what justice looks like for me. For my family, obviously I can't speak for all of them at the moment, but I would say they would also look at the accountability for someone taking accountability for what happened. That would be what justice would look like as well for them.
But what do you mean, I suppose, by accountability?
Like to admit to it, to admit that this was wrong. Then, like, because of the narrative that we've always been told that, oh, he deserved it, he needed to die, there was nothing they could do, they were doing their job. To admit that he didn't deserve to die, there was probably more that could have been done. That is the accountability, and to admit that it was wrong. Something along the lines went wrong. Somebody, someone, I don't know, but something was not, because this can't be the procedure to handle incidents like this, because if it was, then maybe many people would die in similar situations. But has anybody died in a situation like this before?
What would you like the DPP to do then?
I would like the DPP to prioritise this case and to look at it deeply and thoroughly and come to a timely decision that is maybe, I don't know what the word is, but right. That would be what I would want DPP to do.
But does that look like a charge against the individual or individuals responsible for this?
It could be a charge. I don't know the options available to the DPP, so I can't speak on that, but if a charge is what they seem is right, then a charge should be brought. For me, a charge can't bring back my brother, so I can't even say that would give me total satisfaction, because the worst has happened already. But at least let's do what we can to ensure that this type of incident does not occur again, and whatever decision they make will set a precedent. So it is imperative that they thoroughly look at this file and know whatever decision and whatever conclusion that they come to is setting a precedent.
What kind of precedent?
What kind of precedent? Setting a precedent that maybe people with mental health illnesses shouldn't be treated differently or shouldn't be treated with better care as being the most vulnerable in our society. The procedure that you would use for somebody that maybe is mentally sane is the same as the procedure that you should use for people with mental illness, and that's not true. People with mental illness are a lot more vulnerable and require a lot more care.
You also said yesterday that there was a question that needed to be asked, and that is, would the response have been different if the victim had been a middle-class white boy from a leafy suburb in Dublin? Can you elaborate on that further?
There's definitely a class and racism issue here as well. If this was a person maybe from, like I said, South Dublin, maybe not the north side, who was white, the response would definitely be different. If you just even look at the response online, it's a lot of focus on his colour and where he was from and the area that he lived in. That would not happen if he was from a different area, if he was maybe a different colour as well.
So are you talking about the response from the public, the response from the media, or the response from the Gardaí?
All three. The response from the Gardaí, there's definitely racial bias within the Gardaí. Surveys have been done on that. That's clear. The response from the public, I've seen as well. I know empty barrels do make the most noise, but we have seen a lot of negative response from the public. In terms of the media, the first response was to carry a narrative that was wrong. There was headlines immediately after his death which labelled him a thug, which labelled him a maniac, which labelled him an immigrant. And that was what was carried for such a long, which even went as far as saying that there was convictions, which wasn't true. And it was the fact that it was so easily believed and so easily accepted.
So you feel there is an issue here, a lack of understanding, a lack of empathy, a different response because he was a person of colour?
I do feel like there has been a lack of empathy for sure, because not just because he was a person of colour, but because of the class that he was in, maybe from the area that we're from, a working class area. So yes, race is an issue, but they should also know that class is also an issue here. There has definitely been a lack of empathy, and I think it wouldn't be smart or even like wise to say that no, there's not a lack of empathy. There is definitely a lack of empathy. The fact that even after his death, I had to go out and explain and make people understand that my family is sad. Of course we will be sad. Of course we feel a way. The fact that I have to answer to the fact that, oh, how do you feel? How would you feel? You have to explain a trauma for something that should be understood regardless, because pain is pain.
Do you have any sympathy at all for the situation that the guards and the armed response units found themselves in that day?
Yeah, I do, because maybe it's a procedure thing, maybe it's a policy thing. I'm not in their minds. I do have sympathy. They are, like I am a human being, they are also a human being. I can't speak to what was going through their minds that day or what influenced them to do what they did. So to say that I don't have sympathy would be a lie to myself. I do have sympathy for them as well. It's not an easy job.
And you accept that they have to make split-second decisions and try and, I suppose, make an assessment of the risk in stressful circumstances?
Like, I'm not a guard, so I don't have their training or their understanding, so I can't really speak to that. I do know that they're probably held to a higher standard because their duty is to serve and to protect. On Garda Síochána means the protectors or the guardians of peace. So that is what their duty is, and they are to protect the people in society as well. And my brother was in society as well.
So they had a duty to protect not only the people that they felt were threatened by your brother that day, but to him himself?
Yes, because he's also part of society.
There was, of course, speculation that he was carrying a knife We know that there was that altercation in a supermarket earlier in the day, and that there had been attempts to taser your brother, we understand, and to disarm him. Do you accept all of those as facts?
I can't really speak to that at the moment because there is an investigation going on.
According to the Gardaí, lethal force is meant to be used in exceptional circumstances. Were these exceptional circumstances, do you think?
Lethal forces, but again, I do not receive the trainings that the Gardaí have received, so I cannot define what a lethal, what an exceptional circumstances could have been to them and what they have been trained to. So I can't, again, speak to that.
Tell me about your brother's mental health, particularly in the weeks and the months coming up to his death.
My brother had suffered from mental health issues for maybe the past 4 or 5 years, and he was in the process of being involuntary committal, and we were making steps towards that, but there was a delay. And coming up to that, I think it was in like a week or two before Christmas or so, my sister started doing extra work while we were waiting for him to be involuntary committed, and she made calls to different centres and left messages. Maybe I think they were closed due to the fact that it was Christmas and so close to the holidays, and we only received callbacks after he had passed, which was in the new year.
You have become your brother's spokesperson, as it were, haven't you?
Yes, I would say so, yeah.
What drives you to do that?
I have to do what I have to do. It's now become my role, and I just have to do what I have to do. And I don't want his death to be in vain. Yeah.
Has that come at a personal cost?
Yes, it has. But I just look at the bigger picture and hope that everything that I do and stepping outside of my comfort zone and doing things that I don't normally would do or I'm not comfortable doing will pay off for him. It's the least that I could do.
What aspect of it is the most difficult?
Having to talk about it constantly and explain it constantly, I think, because you're just reliving it constantly, and that's the aspect that's most difficult to me.
What do you want for George now?
I want his name to be at peace. I just want him to be at peace. That's all I want.
And do you feel he is not at peace now?
His family aren't at peace, so how would he be?
Ultimately, Gloria, you feel there are lessons to be learned and that the outcome could have been different here.
Yeah, I do. There are lessons to be learned, and I hope people do learn them. If they do, I don't know if I can change anybody else's mind anymore. I think I've done the best of my ability at this point, but I'll continue trying.
Gloria Nkencho, thank you for speaking to us on the programme.
Thank you for having me.